Hey, what's going on everybody? Dr. Medic here. For those who don't know how this kind of video works, I usually take one of my hour-plus long videos and split it into segments based on class, for those who may have been turned away due to the monstrous runtime of the original video. This time it is from my TF2 Biggest Weapon Glowup First Unlocks video, which was almost 2 hours long. To make it more interesting, since I didn't go over stock weapons, I will go over stock weapons that have changed for that class in each video, and they'll be placed at the end of the video, so even if you've seen the original, there is something new for you. Because the original video was a ranking, I have had to slightly re-edit some parts, and it will now work on a +5 -5 system, with 0 being neutral, +5 being a major transformation in a good way, and -5 being a major transformation in a bad way. With Pyro done, we're moving on to the so-called defense classes, which starts with Demoman. I have an underrated weapon in this slot. It's one of the most front-loaded TF2 weapons in the game, the Scottish Resistance.
You appear to have trodden on a mine!
The Scottish Resistance was added in the War update alongside the Eyelander and Chargin Targe. Yeah, there was no Demoman primary introduced in the War update. It wouldn't be until later in 2010 that the lock and load would be added to the game. But let's talk about the stats of the Scottish Resistance. You are able to place up to 14 stickies rather than the standard 8, and you can detonate the stickies one at a time. You basically have this invisible circle on your screen that whenever you hover over your sticky bombs, it can allow you to detonate them individually, unless you're too far away or if the bombs are too clumped up, then I guess it's impossible to just detonate one at a time, but you get what I mean. This makes it solid for setting up multiple traps, the go-to defensive sticky bomb launcher. It also has a 25% faster firing speed, which can allow you to carpet bomb an entire area or set up traps faster. It also has a 50% max reserve ammo bonus, bringing the base 24 that the sticky bomb launcher has up to 36. You can detonate stickies while on top of them. This is less of an upside and more of a quality of life addition, allowing you to sticky jump with this thing without having to awkwardly look down first. Finally, you have the last upside, which allows you to destroy enemy sticky bombs. It can come in super handy for destroying sticky traps rather than kind of dispersing the bombs. The downside for the plethora of amazing upsides is a 0.8 second longer arm time, meaning it takes a second and a half instead of 0.7 seconds to detonate. There are no other downsides on this weapon, it's just worse at sticky spamming, which is debatable to be honest with you, mainly due to that extra firing speed. The current Scottish Resistance is misunderstood, terribly underrated for the damage it can inflict. You can set multiple traps in different doorways, and like I said previously, you can carpet bomb entire areas to keep enemies on their toes. But enough about that, how does it compare to the original Scottish Resistance? Well, everything is the exact same except for 2 stats. Originally, the Scottish Resistance lacked the 25% faster firing speed when the weapon was first launched. This means it took the standard 0.6 seconds instead of 0.45 seconds to fire each individual bomb. Though, instead of a 0.8 second arm time penalty like it has today, it was only 0.4 seconds, meaning it took 1.1 seconds to arm instead of the modern day 1.5. You can also take into account that the original sticky bombs had the explosion radius of 159 hammer units instead of 146, though that's only about 9%. There were some bug fixes here and there, but these are the only significant changes of the Scottish Resistance from its original version back in the War update. There are benefits to both of these, but that 25% firing speed just allows you to litter the field with bombs, as well as allowing you to place traps much quicker and more efficiently. Though it does have a smaller explosion radius and does take 0.4 seconds longer to detonate, because this weapon is mostly defensive orientated and excels at setting traps, the modern day version is a little bit superior. You can argue this one for sure, I understand, but I personally think the ability to vomit bombs is better than being able to detonate 4/10 of a second faster on a weapon that's mainly meant for trapping anyway. Everybody already knows how the Targe works for the most part, but let's go over the stats for a bit of a refresher. The Chargin Targe is a shield item for Demoman. It's a secondary to be specific. The blue text for the shield is its resistances, which offer the highest resistance of the Trinity, with a 50% fire resistance and a 30% explosive resistance on wearer. This means Demoman's pipes only deal a measly 70 damage while you have it equipped, and you have effectively 350 health against Pyros, 400 with the booties, and even more if you're using the Eyelander and have max heads. The main draw of the weapon is that you can press mouse 2 or whatever you have it bound to in order to charge forward. I think we all know that. The charge lasts 1.75 seconds at base. It will deal 50 damage if you run directly into somebody after a bit of distance has been cleared. It's an additional 10 for each head you have with the Eyelander if you're running the Chargin Targe with the Eyelander, which is part of the same set, so most likely. And if at least 60% or so of the charge is depleted, your melee weapon will deal a full critical hit. If you're between 25 and 59%, you'll deal a mini crit, excluding the Caber. The Caber is incapable of mini critting, at least in this fashion. And below 25%, you'll deal no additional damage. Charging will also remove debuffs you have at the time, but if you get hit while charging, whether it's bleed, Girardi, fire, mad milk, whatever, it will not be removed. This is solid, no doubt, and while many say the Chargin Targe is overshadowed by the existence of the Splendid Screen Tide Turner, they'd have to be a fool to call it bad. Seriously, it's a great shield. When the Chargin Targe was released, it was team color, making it harder to see. That's why the Chargin Targe is painted yellow nowadays, but is red or blue in the old promotional art. You may have seen this on the main page for the war update. Everything in terms of charging is pretty much the same, but there were some little differences. First, it would always provide a crit after a shield bash. It still did have the 0%, 25%, 60% deal it has now, but if you were to run directly into someone, you would receive a crit for your melee weapon regardless of how much charge was left over. Whereas now, it is completely based on the amount of time charged, so a shield bash just does damage, it doesn't impact whether you get a crit or not. There are also some small differences, like it didn't remove debuffs, you couldn't charge while airborne, shield bashing didn't actually deal any damage when this weapon was first released, and it could not be refilled by the resupply cabinet, so it had to recharge completely naturally. And then finally, the charge depleted if you were air blasted rather than being halted. It was kind of strange. The old Chargin Targe seems kind of underwhelming, but that's only because I've specifically left out one crucial part to this. It did have the 50% fire resistance it has today, but it also had a 60% explosive resistance, bringing a 100 damage pill to just 35. Yeah, listen, I think the current Chargin Targe is good, but the shield bash always granting a crit, crazy fire resistance, and even crazier explosive resistance is hard to look past. I believe the Chargin Targe explosive resistance also applied to yourself. Sure, the original Chargin Targe didn't allow you to trimp since you couldn't charge while airborne, but even in the modern game, no one is really doing that with the Targe of all shields. The ability to wipe debuffs is cool, and it is a quality of life to be able to recharge the shield if you're near a resupply cabinet, but I don't believe these upsides of the current Chargin Targe come even close to rivaling the original one. Despite being close in function, especially when running the shield in a hybrid knight loadout like it was intended to, it's not even close. Here's a fun one, an iconic TF2 weapon. Maybe not iconic enough to be recognized outside of TF2 like the Golden Frying Pan, but if you played for more than 20 minutes, you know what this weapon is. It's basically its own character at this point, and it literally is its own character in the comics. We're talking about the Eyelander. The Eyelander was the first Demoman sword unlock added to the game, also in the war update of 2009, and it kind of shows. Seeing as this weapon is one of those infamous snowball weapons that doesn't really have much of a downside after X amount of kills or damage or whatever, it was a pioneer of this. The Eyelander starts you off with 25 less health, bringing base Demoman from 175 to 150, or if you're rocking the Alibaba Weed Booties, or the Bootlegger if you're a real one, 200 to 175. Every kill will give you a head, and with this, 1, your base health will be increased by 15. This can be done 4 times in increments of 15, so with no booties it goes 150, 165, 180, 195, 210. With the booties, it's 175, 190, 205, 220, and maxes out at 235. And that is the complete max. Getting kills after this will give you 15 health on kill. Imagine if it didn't have a cap. Yeah, that'd be fun. It also increases your movement speed, which also caps out at 128% with 5 heads if you don't have the booties, or 136% with the booties and Bootlegger. 136% is just a tad faster than Scout at base, who's at 133%. And finally, it will increase shield bash damage by 10 up to 50. Being a sword, it also comes with a 50% increased melee range, but deploys and holsters 75% slower and cannot randomly crit. Wow, that was a lot of stuff to go over, but necessary. The Eyelander is the quintessential Demo Knight weapon, and without this weapon, we don't have a true Demo Knight. Sure, there's the Persian Persuader, which tried to be that weapon, but it's not the Eyelander. As you've likely noticed, I said that this weapon has had a slight glow up. Is that true? Actually, it depends. Here's why. Some of the stat changes favored Demo Knight, which is how the vast majority of people use the Eyelander, and some favored Hybrid Knight, or regular Demoman, which is a little bit less common. Though, let's break it down. The Eyelander is mostly the same as it was in 2009. The head system was the same in terms of speed gain and health gain. There were no booties, but I'm not going to hold that against the Eyelander. The eye glow used to also be reddish for the red team and blue for the blue team rather than green, so it's slightly harder to see. It couldn't random crit, and it started you off with 150 health, though there were 3 differences. Well, 4, kind of. First, there's the universal change to all swords, increased holster time and whatnot, and the increased melee range. The first difference, gaining heads used to not increase shield bash damage, which would suck a lot for Demo Knight, but it's also because the Chargin Targe didn't even deal shield bash damage on release. Despite this, this is still technically a drawback that it will hold against the Eyelander. But that is the only clear downside. The other one is less so. Remember how I stated that since it's a sword, it gains increased melee range and decreased deploy and holster speed? If you're an avid Demoman player that uses the Eyelander, 1, you're unique, and 2, the extra range might be nice, but it's less reliable to whip out in a pinch. If you're a Hybrid Knight player, it's a little less of an issue, since most people play Hybrid Knight in 2 distinct flow states. For Demo Knights, which is the primary users of the Eyelander, it is a straight upgrade as you cannot holster your Eyelander, period. So it's just an additional melee range with no strings attached. All things considered, I believe the Eyelander is a slight glow up, though feel free to argue this one. Demoman has 2 primaries, stock weapons we need to discuss, as the only weapon that has not gone through any significant statistical changes is the stock bottle. So let's begin with the grenade launcher.
Cotton balloons!
Just like the rest of the stock weapons in the game, with the exception of the flamethrower, I guess, technically, they lack any sort of real stats and unlocks derived from them. Here are the basics of the grenade launcher. The grenade launcher can hold up to 4 grenades despite having 6 cylinders. I'm aware that they reduced the amount from 6 to 4 except for on the PS3 version, but I'll never not notice that inconsistency. It has 16 grenades in reserve, can be fired every 600 milliseconds, and fires a projectile with an arc at 1,216 hammer units per second. The grenades, when fired, will tumble either forward or backwards with a random offset, which will give the grenade launcher some variance in accuracy and the distance it can actually go. Though, for the most part, this is pretty small. It has no fall off. Hitting an enemy directly will always deal 100 damage upon a successful direct hit. And finally, pipes have the explosion radius of 146 hammer units, which is the same as the rocket launcher, can deal self-damage, and does reduce damage if it hits the ground first, and explodes after 2.3 seconds. The grenade launcher is a solid weapon, and if it weren't for my love and joy, the loose cannon, the grenade launcher would probably be up there in use as one of my go-tos. It's a solid weapon that has good damage, decent mid-range potential, good for shooting around corners and over debris. I'm likely preaching to the choir here, but the pipe bomb launcher is a very good primary weapon. It serves its job very well. Though I will come out and say that it's pretty common knowledge at this point, the original grenade launcher was better for a few reasons. Not even gonna do the whole reveal thing. I think most of you know this already. But let's talk about it. First, just like the rocket launcher, which I talked about in the soldier video, originally it had a rectangular explosion radius instead of spherical. The current Stickybomb, pipe, and rocket all have the same explosion radius at 146 hammer units, all 3 of them. The original rocket launcher had an explosion radius of 121 hammer units, but like I said in that video, due to it being rectangular, this meant that certain angles, it was effectively bigger than it is now. However, despite the Stickybomb, pipe, and rocket all being the same blast radius today, this was not the case for the grenade launcher. Instead of 121 hammer units with a rectangular hitbox, it had a 132 hammer unit rectangular hitbox, which was eventually changed to 159 hammer unit spherical one before it was reduced in late 2014. So while the current grenade launcher explosion may be more consistent, the original blast radius was bigger overall and could hit players from further away, on average. Even if that doesn't save the original grenade launcher, these other stats will. At point blank, the pipe was kind of bugged, and it was completely unable to damage you. This was consistent enough for me to count it. On top of this, just like the rocket launcher, the reserve ammo was reduced. Instead of being 4 and 16 for a total of 20 pipes, it was 4 and 30 for a total of 34. If you played on the PS3, it was 6 and 30 with a total of 36. But that's more of a fun fact than anything. I'm not really considering that for the scoring between these two versions. There are two more differences, but they don't really count since they're based off old mechanics that are turned off by default now anyway. Originally, random damage spread rolled for a plus-minus 10% variance, whereas now modern-day grenades roll for a plus-minus 2% variance. At least that's what the patch notes say. Though, when I'm in a server with random damage spread on, I've had grenades do 97 damage and 103 damage, which would indicate a plus-minus 3% variance. So maybe it's like a 2.5 or whatever, so it rounds up. I'm not 100% sure. Either way, it's not as bad as it was before. It's not as varied. So it can't do 110 anymore. It won't go as low as 90 either. Also, know how I said the modern day grenade launcher? Yes, I said this before, I believe. Random damage spread still exists in the game. It's just off by default, but it can be turned on via console commands. Originally, it would vary from 90 to 110, whereas now it's 97 to 103. But likely nobody knows this, since no Valve or community server to my knowledge run this mechanic anymore. The other difference is that grenades closer to the feet would roll for more damage more often, but even so, the original grenade launcher is better. So I would say that for the most part, the grenade launcher has had a glow down in recent years rather than a glow up. Though you can feel free to disagree, because random damage spread really does throw a wrench into a lot of things. It was a very prevalent mechanic originally, whereas now it just doesn't exist. Though, in my mind, it's like you don't want to compare the two based on a mechanic that affected the game as a whole, right? I would rather compare the original grenade launcher to the modern day grenade launcher, either both having random damage spread or neither having random damage spread. It would be unfair otherwise.
Kablooey!
Just like the grenade launcher, the Stickybomb launcher has had its fair share of changes also. You know the drill. Stickybomb launcher fires, you guessed it, sticky bombs every 0.6 seconds, and they travel at a slow 925 ham units if you just tap mouse 1. But if you charge the Stickybomb launcher by holding mouse 1 over 4 seconds, you can launch the bomb faster and further. Full charge stickies move at about 2,410 hammer units, which is around the same speed as a Rescue Ranger bolt or Crusader crossbow arrow, which moves at 2,400. It holds 8 in the drum, 24 in reserve, and takes 5.78 seconds to reload all 8 if you have 0. You can place a max of 8 bombs at once, which the arm time is around 0.7 seconds before they can be detonated. If you attempt to place another bomb after that, the oldest surviving bomb will be detonated. If you try to detonate another bomb, if you already have bombs on the field and you shoot another bomb and it hasn't been 0.7 seconds, the other bombs will explode, but that one will not. The explosion radius is the same as the grenade launcher's pipe bomb and rocket launcher's rocket at 146 hammer units. Bombs will take both the enemy's distance from the bomb as well as enemy's distance from the Demoman who fired it in order to determine ramp up and damage fall off, unless the bomb has been alive for 5 seconds. Take a shot every time I say bomb. After 5 seconds, there will be damage fall off, obviously, but it will no longer take the Demoman's distance into consideration when determining damage. Speaking of damage, the base damage is 120 with a max of 144, but realistically, you're going to see numbers maybe as high as 135-ish if you're almost point blank, and more like 90 to 100 at most ranges. Bombs can be pushed by air blasts while on the ground or in the air, but they do not change team. Grounded bombs, however, can be broken by any bullet weapon or normal melee weapon. That's the Stickybomb launcher for you, a very versatile weapon that can be both defensive and offensive when you need it to be. That was the whole design principle behind it. Personally, I'm more of a trap guy myself. Just look at the description of my own strange Stickybomb launcher. However, it is great because it is fully capable of doing both. The damage is good, the arm time isn't too long, so, like I said, you can set traps if you just wait a few seconds, or you can spam it. Many competitive players use this as their primary, and then the grenade launcher as a secondary, and many even hardcore casual players do as well, because it's just very good. The only thing that holds it back, which is a good thing in my opinion, is its extended reload time. That's what keeps this weapon in check. How does the modern day Stickybomb launcher stack up, and has it had a positive transformation? Well, let's talk about that. First, just like the grenade launcher and rocket launcher, it has max reserve ammo reduced. Instead of 24 in reserve for a total of 32 bombs, it had 40 in reserve for a total of 48, more than the modern day Scottish Resistance. Okay, slight reduction, not too bad though. Second, the explosion radius was effectively bigger. Like I said in the grenade launcher segment, it had 132 hammer unit explosion radius rather than 146, but it was rectangular, which made it significantly bigger at some angles. Third, ramp-up damage was reduced. It used to be significantly higher. Not sure the exact amount because it wasn't really well documented, but it was claimed to be higher. Fourth, and the biggest sin of all, sticky bombs could not be destroyed. Shooting them simply just pushed them around. There were 3 other differences, but they're minor compared to everything else. The aura they have to indicate team and whatnot was a lot more dim, making it harder to see. The original random damage spread variance was +-10 instead of +-2 or +-3 like it is today, which wouldn't affect 99.99% of TF2 players, since no servers to my knowledge even run it. And you could detonate bombs while taunting originally. That was a feature. Overall, I think it's safe to say that the original Stickybomb launcher was better than the version we have now. While still a weapon of mass destruction and drunkenness in today's modern game, it had a Glowdown. It's kind of ridiculous how good the original version of the Stickybomb launcher and grenade launcher was. That will do it for today. Thank you so much for watching. Assuming this video doesn't get pushed back or pushed up, it's December 20th, so happy New Year's, or almost New Year's. If you're finding this video as a relic of the past and it's like 10 years old or something, happy whatever year or day it is to you. Heavy Weapon Guide will come out next month on January 20th. I hope you stick around. Thank you and goodbye.